Okay, y'all, I'm going to show you one of our favorite techniques with just, we're going to use some Sharpie markers, and I've got 2 different size Sharpie markers. You don't have to. I just grabbed 2 different sizes. And then 2 washable markers and some water. I'm working on watercolor paper, and for this technique, we're going to use markers kind of like watercolor. Now to begin with, I'm going to use a Sharpie, and I'm just going to quickly, I love flowers, so I'm going to draw a lot of different flowers, but you do not have to do flowers. You could kind of draw whatever you want to. Now the reason that I am doing Sharpie is because I'm going to add water to this later. So like, even if I was doing regular watercolor and was going to add water, I would want to do Sharpie, because if you were to use like one of these regular markers, it's going to bleed. Now we want these regular markers to bleed, and I'll show you why. They are washable markers, and so they are made to get loose when water touches them, and we're going to use that to our advantage. Let's see. And right now I'm just having fun and just filling it with lots of pattern of flowers. Okay, if you saw our video yesterday, you know how we like to go back in and add just a little bit of value with lines. So I'm going to do that really quickly with this Sharpie, just kind of adding just a little bit of line. I grabbed this other one just in case this one started to run out. And then a lot of times I like to kind of have different size lines too, so I may switch to this for some of these other ones, just so that there's a little bit of a thinner line for these little details. Okay. If you have been to the studio, you've seen a giant black flower, kind of like this black and white flower, because I have fun doing big flowers. Oh, this one doesn't work too good either. And so what we are going to do after we put in all of our detail with the Sharpie is we are going to lay in the washable Crayola markers. Now, they don't have to be Crayola. They can be any kind of washables and water-soluble markers. They just can't be Sharpies, because Sharpies are meant to be permanent and they're going to stay put. So after I get all of this fun line on, I'm going to show y'all how we take those markers and turn them into watercolor. And this is a really fun activity if you just don't, you want to be creative, you want to draw, you want there to be color, but you don't want to pull out a ton of messy supplies. These are probably supplies that you've got like at your house. Like your kids probably have got some washable markers, and you can grab some watercolor paper. They've got this anywhere. They've even got watercolor paper at Target now in the little crafty section. And as you can see, I'm very loose. I just like loose. I prefer looseness and kind of free lines a lot better than tight, because to me it's just more fun. And again, if you are just now hopping on, this is watercolor paper and Sharpie. It's important that you use watercolor paper if you're going to be adding water to this, which we are. Anytime you're doing watercolor or adding any kind of water to the paper, you need a thicker paper, not just copy paper. All right, so I have got my Sharpie on. Now I'm going to come in with my color. I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to do like the center, this color, maybe this center. And then over here I might do the leaves. And I'm not going to feel the need, not the leaves, the petals. I'm not going to feel the need to fill the whole thing in, okay? This marker is almost even drying up, but it still usually will still work. It's got a little bit of what I call that marker juice in there. And then when we add the water to it, it's really going to loosen it a good bit. So you see I'm just kind of laying this on one side. I'm using the side of my marker, not the tip of it, because I want to lay down as much of that marker juice as possible. And then, let's see, for these, I'm going to use this other one. Again, using the side. Not coloring in perfect, being loose and free and laying it down quickly. Uh-oh, just realized I'm out of the picture. This is also a good technique for young kids too. Now they might not draw a flower like this, but they could draw a fish or a heart, you know, something really simple and easy, and then use these washable markers to color a little bit in. If you ever, when you were little, got those books that already had the color on the page and you just added the water and then all of a sudden it turned into watercolor, that's kind of what this is going to be like. Kind of, we're putting this color down and then we're going to watch it turn into watercolor. All right, now I like to always do the light colors first. So I'm going to do my yellow first. So I'll go in this yellowy orange and all of these centers. I'm going to kind of touch that water to it. And then I'm going to touch this. It starts to loosen. Now I usually like to leave a little bit white just for highlight. Let me kind of zoom in so that you can see it a little bit better. That marker, once you touch, and this is nothing special, this is just water and a watercolor brush. I'm just using the right kind of paper, the watercolor paper. But you see that that just kind of dissolves and turns into a cool looking something something. Okay, now I'm going to go to the pink. I love the bright pink. Again, I like to leave just a little bit of white on some of them just for like a little bit of a highlight. To me, if you do the whole thing, one solid color, it's just not as interesting, doesn't have enough contrast. It just has a little bit more of a pop if there's a little bit of a highlight. And instead of going back in and trying to put a highlight in, which with some of our paintings we do, but with this, I'm just going to leave some area white, and that'll do the trick. Okay, so I'm just about done. So just to repeat what I'm using here, watercolor paper, a Sharpie or a permanent marker to draw the main drawing, to draw all of our flowers, and then washable, we use washable Crayola markers to lay down the color, and regular water to spread the color. So there you have it, easy peasy, fun little technique that is really fun for all ages. I'll zoom back out if I can. Zoom in, zoom out. There we go. And there you have it. So if y'all do any of these at home, I would love for y'all to post it to our page and show us what you got. All right, see y'all.